Hello everyone, today we'll be discussing my Action Research virtual poster presentation. For those of you who don't know, Action Research is a process where, in this case in particular, a teacher finds problems or issues within her classrooms and follows a process to resolve them. Through this, they collect data, information, and analyze these sources to find something that best suits and helps solve their problem. So this is my problem statement. We know that math application is a key aspect. However, many students are unable to apply theory and use what they've learned to solve word problems, often pertaining to real-world complexes. If you flip through any curriculum document, you can clearly see that a lot of the connections that we're trying to make are real-world application-based. Through this, we're developing 21st century learners and critical thinking skills. I've seen it firsthand in a number of classrooms, and I do believe that there is this disconnect in the classroom where when math is integrated into word problems, students have a really hard time using their critical thinking and problem-solving skills to solve this word problem, as opposed to just a numerical sequence with math operations and numbers. As soon as you throw words in there, students are often discouraged, they get confused or frustrated, and therefore those 21st century learning skills and critical thinking isn't developed or developing. Problem solving is an important aspect of mathematics, and it is what the fundamentals and purpose of math are built on. However, when it comes to solving word problems in math, students have a difficult time comprehending what the problem is asking and how to use the known mathematical processes to solve the problem. Students struggle to apply what they've learned in real-world contexts and scenarios, making the math processes learned in elementary school less effective overall. If you're not making math meaningful and drawing these connections into real life, students are less likely to grasp these concepts, and therefore as teachers, we fail to make 21st century learners. And when they take what they've learned with them in school into the real world, into a career or into an industry, and they go to use the mathematical concept they've learned, they won't be able to apply it to the world around them. Moving on from the statement of research problem, I have developed a question for my action research. My question reads, how can I strengthen problem solving and word problem comprehension in math? This is what my action research is going to be based upon. Some definitions of central terms and relevant terms will help my readers and myself and anyone else who is researching this topic understand key terms and phrases. The first one we have is problem solving. So problem solving is the process of finding solutions to difficult or complex math problems or questions. So as noted, this is central to learning mathematics and is one of the 7 processes listed in the Ontario curriculum. Through this, students are able to achieve expectations in mathematics and help students develop an understanding of math and its application outside of the classroom. This to me is the most important thing when teaching math. Students solving problems. Those skills they will need to apply in the world around them, and therefore they take a front seat in learning. Second is comprehension. So comprehension is the act of understanding something through learned knowledge. So you want students to understand the concepts that you're teaching and be able to apply them through problem solving. Real-world application is a large topic in this research, as we want students to take what they've learned in math and apply it to the world around them. Word problems are math equations that use words to express math problems. For example, students may be asked to solve a problem involving the number of apples on a tree as opposed to solving an adding equation. So this again ties into the real-world application. So as you can see, they all connect to one another and they will appear frequently in my study and when my data is collected. Action research has become more and more popular, and many educators are choosing to use this system to solve problems within their own classroom or school environment. This is because action research follows different stages or sequences that help teachers get to the bottom of their problems. After we've gone over our definitions and some keywords that we'll find in our research, we're going to review some literature. Reading up on other people's analysis of this problem or similar problem helps us gain insight into what we're looking into. The first piece of literature that I read was titled Children's Difficulties with Mathematical Word Problems by Sarah Gooding. This was my first article, and Gooding was able to assess the situation and assure that I was not the only teacher with my research question, as many teachers struggle to strengthen word problem comprehension. So her case study involved 4 grade 5 students and involved interviews that probed the children to discuss where their difficulties lie. There were a number of suggestions in the article, including teaching a method of your own to help students solve word problems. So not only the mathematical processes and then giving them word problems, but as a class or as a school or as a board, coming up with a method to identify keywords in word problems and how we'll use them moving forward to solve these word problems. If everyone is doing the same method or asked to use the same method, students are more likely to be successful. This is from Gooding's findings, where if you teach a method to solve it, students will be less frustrated and more engaged. The second literature summary that I have included in my action research is students' difficulties in solving mathematical word problems from the viewpoint of teachers. So this study looked into difficulties in mathematical word problems from the teachers' perspectives. There were 52 mathematics teachers who were chosen randomly to participate, and the results showed that students' difficulties were mostly from their inability to understand representation and word problems. So this article helped better answer my research question, as it gave a variety of specific methods and real classroom experience. These specific methods are great for problem-solving techniques and are proven to work in the classroom. So the findings of the study revealed that the causes of student difficulties were in text comprehension, unfamiliar contexts and problems, and using inappropriate strategies to effectively solve the question being posed. And the last article I looked at was titled Language, Literacy, and Mathematics Competence. This study aims to show the implications language literacy has on basic mathematics competence, ultimately affecting students' ability to solve word problems. So this research was what stuck out to me the most, as it was conducted in 3 sets of questions. So these would be analyzed separately. The 3 questions were basic math, word problems, and language literacy. So the authors of this article chose to split up mathematical word problems into 3 different sections. Using these variables at 5 different schools, they were able to analyze success rates in these categories. So by doing so, the research was more narrow and defined. Personally, I chose to pull from these methods as they will help with data analysis and looking for the root of the problem in language comprehension and word problems. This method could be used across the board from a diagnostic quiz to ensure language comprehension in the final task by improving specific points of struggle for students. After we've reviewed articles and things that help us gather information, next we can properly formulate an action research plan. This plan will help you gauge your success and your steps to reach your final end goal. Triangulation, validity, and reliability. So validity and truthfulness is extremely important when collecting data and information. If the data is tampered with, the research may not be complete and/or helpful to yourself or other educators. To ensure validity and reliable research, I personally intend to keep the research process anonymous to students. If they're recorded, they'll for the most part be truthful because these students are advocating for math. It's something they want to stand up for. It's something they want to be better in. Some students might be embarrassed to talk about the topic, but I believe that it's best to make the students feel comfortable in a safe environment where their feelings and experiences are validated. Furthermore, it is complex to have reliable information through student work and assessment. If students know that their work is being looked at and they're gauged to see if they understand something or don't for a research project, they're more likely to not complete these word problems to the best of their abilities. They may panic, have anxiety about doing so, and therefore, the validity and reliability of the information we're receiving as researchers may not be as clear as we need it to be. It is important as educators that we do not taint the data by holding certain students to a higher standard while being inconsistent with others. Teachers should be focused on an equitable education and looking at the class as a whole, as opposed to the betterment of one single student and how they learn. So through this and Sarah Gooding's article, being consistent is vital, and during this time, anecdotal notes will help ensure reflection and triangulation as the research project is ongoing. When conducting data, you need a variety of sources. For my data collection in particular, we are going to look at 3 different sources: interviews, student work, and assessments. As we know, data collection is a vital part of action research as it helps educators gather data and sources needed to help answer their research question. So to begin, interviews are the process in which we speak to teachers and students one-on-one. We gather this information. However, we will need to ask permission if we are using a video and or a voice recorder. Otherwise, we can just take anecdotal notes. This is really useful as students will advocate for themselves and their difficulties when solving math word problems. Secondly is student work. This is a large part of the data source for this research question. Not only is it important to compare student work with word problems, but some with just numerical equation as it offers insight to what students are successful at. So by comparing these different pieces of work, we're able to gauge what concepts are grasped and what needs more work. Lastly is assessments. So similar to student work, assessment is able to give insight into student success and academic knowledge. By gathering data from assessments, there will be concrete evidence of where students struggle. After we've sourced our data and we've looked into the validity and reliability of the information we're receiving and analyzing, we now have to find participants in the setting that they will be researched in. As we know, our action research could not be completed without participants. For this plan, we have 3 sets: students, principals, and colleagues and teachers. Students of all elementary levels will be the main participants, and their chosen setting will be in the classroom. They are the main participants as it is their education and struggle with word comprehension and math problems that we will be looking into. The best place for this setting would be their classroom. It's something they're familiar with, and it's a place where they feel safe and comfortable. Therefore, if the study is done in the classroom, students are more likely to have a positive response. Secondly, principals will be our participants as they have seen a variety of educational landscapes and know their schools and students well. They'll be able to provide data for us that stretches in the past and beyond, as well as the school board in a whole, to see if other teachers and other students are struggling with math comprehension. Lastly, teachers will also be participants. Because this action research question is applicable to all teachers, teachers should also participate in the study. When choosing teachers, they'll be able to share details and insight about the use of word problems in class. Are they teaching methods? Are they intertwined? Are students struggling? Are they benefiting? And how can we better aim our action research and our progress for the betterment of students? This will help us lead to the big picture. After you found your participants and setting, it's important to look into ethical considerations. For this research plan in specific, we are going to keep the information anonymous to teachers, educators, as well as other students being studied. Data will be secured and protected in the principal's office when it's not in use by the researchers. And after 1 year, the data will be destroyed. However, the summary of findings will be kept with the school board forever. Students will need to gain parental permission to participate, and we will also need consent from the school board to conduct our research. Lastly, it is important to treat students with respect and equity. All students struggle in different areas, and support should be given during the data collection and research process. It can be quite intimidating to be interviewed by a teacher or asked specifically about a subject you're not strong in. As teachers and as researchers, we should try putting ourselves in our students' shoes so we can see what they feel and how they feel. As teachers, we should try putting ourselves in our students' shoes. It's important that their voices feel heard and that we advocate for their needs. For our action research plan, we now need to create a timeline chart for the data collection process. It will begin by notifying the school that research will begin to take place. We will select students for the interview process and receive parental consent as well as school board consent. We will then interview the students about their experiences with math word problems. Through this, we're going to validate that the students struggle and work with them to create opportunities for them to better learn this information. Next, we're going to begin collecting and analyzing student work as well as assessment. Through this, we'll be comparing data from multiple classrooms by finding similarities and differences. In January to February in the new year, we'll be exploring ways to better the teaching and integration of word comprehension in math after analyzing our data. Trial and error of new methods and teachings that explore word problems in math and in real-life contexts will follow that. Lastly, we'll be informing parents of the findings and provide additional support at home. After the data collection process is complete, we will then analyze the data that we've received. The responses will then be categorized into 3 groups, such as those developed in Cunningham's article, Good at Math, Bad at Word Problems. The 3 categories are trouble with reading, trouble with math phrases and concept, and lastly, trouble with focus. All responses will be sorted into 3 categories in a T-chart style. After the footage is reviewed and the data is transcribed into anecdotal notes, the schoolwork and the assessment sources will be analyzed. Schoolwork from a variety of units will be chosen, especially those with a focus on word problems. To compare information and target a specific area for improvement, categories will be compared and similar topics will be grouped together. From this, data will reflect areas of struggle that resonate with students. This will help teachers and educators alike zone in on their research and figure out how to fit the betterment needs of our students. Lastly, we're at our closure. The initial research question I had asked is, how can I strengthen problem solving and word problem comprehension in math? Well, through this research, I hope to gain valuable information to student difficulties with word problem solving and comprehending in math, as well as learning how to bridge that gap. 21st century skills are so unique, and they are integrated into the Ontario education system by the ministry. Developing these skills is important to help make math meaningful and relatable to the world around them. After analyzing this data, the focus areas are more clear and precise. Through this, teachers and educators can build this gap that students are lacking. As teachers, we should aim to make student learning meaningful and bring in real-world application when necessary. By working to strengthen word comprehension in math, students will be able to transfer mathematical operations and apply them to situations in the real world around them. I hope that you've enjoyed my action research plan and that this inspires you to look into word problem comprehension as an educator. In addition, here's an annotated bibliography I've used to help me conduct and guide my research. I hope that you've enjoyed my Action Research virtual poster presentation. I hope that this presentation inspired you to conduct your own action research within your classroom.